My name is Philip Pon. I'm the CEO of EMURGO. EMURGO is one of the founding entities of Cardano. So what is my topic today? My topic today is actually introducing the narrative that's going to save crypto, right? And why I think that is, we'll jump into it. So we've been promised that we can tokenize everything from art to wine to real estate to IP. And a lot of people have been trying. And what's not happening? And to my mind, we need to separate the hype from reality. And why that matters is if you look at crypto today, all of crypto right now, the fully diluted market cap is roughly 3 trillion. Apple stock is 3 trillion. And so if we actually are able to tokenize what I think we can and what we'll talk about, financial instruments, you're talking a $400 to $450 trillion market. And that is a TAM worth going after. So when we think about real world assets, what are we really talking about? I won't really go into intangible, tangibles. We have a lot of smart people here. But what really matters is the distinction between, tokenizing. Is it just a wrapper? Well, what really matters is the fact that it's programmable, the fact that it's composable. And that's where the real power lies in RWA. There are 5 forces that are currently converging right now. The number one is crypto regulation. So with MiCA and Stablecoin Act, you're seeing governments, US and EU, two of the largest blocs, actually legislating fiat rails, right? The ability for stables to come into our ecosystem. That hasn't happened before. And that's a really, really important thing because we're moving from a posture of regulating through enforcement to a posture of regulating through legislation. And that allows people like us and people like you and the builders out here to take risk, to actually try and not worry about a Wells notice, right? And not worry about, the SEC giving you a call. Institutional appetite is actually coming in as well. And we'll talk about, the BlackRocks and the Franklins of the world. We have incredible infrastructure. We have custody, we've got Fireblocks, we've got Chainlink, we've got Oracles. All of that stuff is there. The infrastructure is ready for it. And there's demand. DeFi and TradFi are seeking yield. We're all looking for yield. And we have the core primitives. So in order for this all to work, you need stables, right? And we have stables. It's roughly 255 billion. And so the first product market fit for RWA has already happened, and it's growing. So what is working today? You're seeing the Franklin Templetons, you're seeing the BlackRocks enter this space. These guys don't enter this space to be number 3 or number 4 in the rankings, right? They come into the space to dominate, to be number 1 or number 2. And so does that leave room, though, for people like us, people who are building, smaller players? For example, OpenEden, they did one of the first tokenized treasuries, and now they're doing a yielding stablecoin. And I believe that they have a shot. And the reason why I believe that is, I'm old enough to remember G+. If anyone in this room remembers G+, we're probably the same age. So G+ was actually Google's attempt to compete with Facebook and to compete with Twitter. And at the time, Google was and continues to be the 800-pound gorilla. They have unlimited capital, unlimited resources, the best engineers on the planet, and an installed user base. And they still failed. Twitter and Facebook beat them. So there's definitely room for disruptive companies that are willing to challenge the incumbents. So what should we all think about? What is the right framework to, really dive into RWA and what's going to be needed for it to actually be successful? I think of it as the 3 C's. So first, you need compliance. The practical reality is you do need regulations to actually onboard billions and billions and billions of dollars, right? You can't just do that in DeFi. So compliance matters. The second C is custody. You actually need to custody the asset either in token form or in the asset form. If you don't trust the custody, again, you're not going to deploy billions of dollars. And the third component, which is what fits within our remit, fits within our kind of capabilities, it doesn't necessarily rely on third parties like government or like large institutions, is composability. And composability is actually the most interesting thing about RWA. So if you can actually create an asset that can now be borrowed against, lent against, collateralized instantaneously, that is actually what is going to drive user adoption. So I think about the 3 C's as like the critical components of RWA. And here's the spoiler alert. It's actually already happening. We see plenty of people out there. If we walk out onto the floor, if we go to any of the conferences, we're seeing tons and tons of Web3 firms and Web2 firms, TradFi, starting to experiment, starting to prove the first kind of product market fits. And it's accelerating. But where it's starting and where it will go is, I think, the interesting thing. So I'm Canadian. So as Wayne Gretzky would say, to score goals, you need to skate where the puck is going to be, not where the puck is. And so where is everyone focused right now? Most of the people that we talk to are focused at the top of the liquidity stack. So tokenized treasuries, you know, basically stuff that's relatively straightforward, that's super liquid, that actually you can explain to your mom. Now, that's going to lead to early adoption, but those players are not going to make a ton of money doing that, and yield is only going to go down. So then you start seeing people move down the liquidity stack. They go into equities, they go into fixed income. Fixed income is 150 trillion. But in order to kind of tackle that space, you're going to have to push out incumbents. You're going to have to fight with the Goldmans, the JP Morgans, the New York Stock Exchanges, the people that actually, again, have unlimited capital, a lot of engineers, and legions of lawyers, right? And so I personally don't think that equities and fixed income and even real estate are the right places for the next layer of adoption. I would actually move further down the liquidity stack. And I think a lot about private credit. So at EMURGO, where I'm at, where we want to play is we actually want to play not at the top of the liquidity stack, not in the thick part of the curve, but actually in the private credit space. Private credit space is a $2.5 to $10 trillion industry. So that's plenty of money, plenty of yield, plenty of opportunity. And it actually would benefit from those three C's: proper compliance, proper custody, and most importantly, some degree of composability. And so I would encourage you guys to think about, where in the liquidity stack RWA is going to gain its next $1 billion of TVL, its next million users. And I fundamentally believe that's going to be at the bottom of the liquidity stack, where it's much more illiquid, much more opaque, and where we can actually fight a bit on a level playing field. Over time, it will converge. Over time, I do believe everything will be tokenized. That, to me, is an inevitability. And we're starting to see that and starting to see the seeds of that because we have those three components: compliance, custody, and composability. And for us, again, as a builder and as someone who invests in these things, we really are looking for people who are willing to start executing over evangelizing. So my job is to evangelize. My job is to come here and tell you why it's great, why it's a good get, why there's trillions of dollars available to us. The people who are actually going to do it are the people that I'm looking at, and the people I'm looking at out there, the people who are putting not just their capital work, but their time and their expertise to try to tackle this. So we're now moving into a world where execution is possible. And it's possible because, as I said, regulation through enforcement is in the past. We're in an incredibly permissive environment right now, and it's going to reward risk takers. The core primitives are already there. You have 255 billion of stablecoins and growing. So you have enough lubrication in the system to start executing sizable transactions. You're not limited to small asset classes. And when you have proper custody, like BitGo, Coinbase, Zodia, you can pick your poison, right? You can choose the institutions that are incumbents, like Zodia, which is part of Stanchart, or you can go to a Web3 native, right, like a Coinbase. So you have your choice, but you do need to have proper custody in order to scale your business, or in order to attract people like myself to invest and deploy meaningful capital. So right now, I think we're in a unique time where you've got these five forces at work, you have all the pieces ready, and as I said, an environment that is actually permissive. We just need the talent. We just need to attract, the builders and attract them into something where they can make meaningful money, i.e. yield that's in USDC, USDT, or our stable USDA, not in tokens, right? Because the reality is we need to move to a place where these are real businesses that are profitable, right? And that's where we're moving towards. So I won't talk too much about Cardano, but Cardano is one of the OG chains. I just sat in an incredible conversation with a bunch of L1s, certainly technologists who know way more about crypto than I do. But I ultimately feel that brands are going to start to matter. chains that you know and trust and have been around for a long time are going to matter. If you use ChatGPT, which we all do, if you actually ask it, tell me a chain that's been around for more than 5 years with a $5 billion plus market cap that has never had a security flaw and has never shut down, that's actually a very, very, very small list of chains. And so if you're a large institution, or if you are a scrappy startup that wants to build and scale to the multi-billions, you kind of need to work with an infrastructure that you can count on. So that's all I'll say about Cardano. We would only ask to be one of those choices. And so what I really want to do is kind of create a call to action, right? It's all about stopping the evangelization, moving into execution. RWA tokenization is inevitable. It's going to happen. It's already happening. It's what's going to save crypto. Like, nobody here really wants to hang their hat on memes, right? Humbly speaking. We're all here because we want to build real businesses, things that can scale into sizable and sustainable enterprises. And so RWA is the narrative that I think, frankly, is the only narrative I can think that adds enough zeros to make it interesting. And so what you have to ask is, are you going to be part of the infrastructure layer, the trust layer, or the liquidity layer? Figure out where you're going to play, figure out how you're going to participate, and I think there's an enormous opportunity here. So thanks very much for your time. Really like to encourage you to focus on building the future of finance. Thanks.